Neira. She is from Indonesia, lives in Jakarta, and I'm super happy that that works out well. She is part of the network Young Experts Tech for Health and provides counseling to the Transform Health Council. This is a global coalition on leveraging digital innovation to achieve quality healthcare for all. Alongside with Fondation Botna, the founders of the coalition, including the PMNCH Pass and Women Deliver.
Thank you so much, Corinne. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Neira. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, and I'm really happy to be here to share my experiences as a young person in the digital health field. So I'd like to start by explaining a little bit of my background first. I know Corinne did touch on it a little bit. So I'm one of 12 of this global youth council called Young Experts Tech for Health. And we provide independent insight and counsel to Transform Health, which is a global coalition that aims to achieve the digital transformation of healthcare for UHC by 2030. And so we're all about digital health for universal health coverage. But aside from that, I also am a co-founder of TabooID, which is one of Indonesia's largest social media sexual and reproductive health rights intervention for young people. So we're a 100% youth-led and youth-run organization, and we provide comprehensive evidence-based digital education and advocacy about SRHR through social media. And so as you may have seen on the agenda, so today I'm going to be sharing some of my experiences and some of the lessons that I've learned in digital health content for young people. So I'll draw on experiences from my work in Taboo and also our work in Young Experts. And unfortunately, because my work is in Indonesian, so the examples would be in Indonesian, but I'll try my best to explain and translate for everyone here. Yeah, so let's start. With some of the best practices in SRHR digital content for youth that I've learned in the 3 years that I've worked here in this field. So one key thing that I think is really, really crucial is for digital SRHR or health content for young people really to lead with what matters for young people. So we should have answers and we should lead with what's trending for young people. What do they care about? What's on their mind? What are they tweeting about? What are they tweeting about? What are the problems that they're facing? And this is because health content in the broader social media landscape has to compete with a lot of other entertaining content on social media. And so we have to be able to lead with what will grab young people's attention and then use these top trending topics as entry points to hook young people in and then provide the health information that they need. Based on my experiences, just directly providing health information for young people doesn't work nearly as well because it doesn't grab their attention and it doesn't hook them in. And so one of the really, really crucial things that I've learned is that we have to be able to hook people in, young people in with what matters for them. And so how do we know what matters for young people? Based on my experiences and my organization's experiences, we do a lot of trend scanning and social media listening. So we observe and we also document the various trends and issues that come up in young people's conversations in Instagram and social media and Twitter and on Facebook. And we see like, what are they posting about? What are they commenting about? What are they liking? From health topics to elements of pop culture, including TV shows, movies, news, Netflix series, figures, public figures such as celebrities. We also use memes, for instance, events, happenings, and etc. And all of these different things that can be trending can all be used as entry points to then talk about health. And this way, we can really grab young people's attention and meet them where they are. So we're meeting them where their interests are. So I'll give you an example of how Taboo is doing this. So this is an example of one of our content. I'm sorry, this is in Indonesian, but basically this is a case study. This is what we posted on Instagram, I think a couple of months back. So in this example, we use a viral case. So this is a case, a news story that recently went viral, and a lot of people were talking about it on social media. A lot of people were commenting on it. So it went viral, the case. And so this case was related to teenage pregnancy. And we saw an opening, and we saw that this kind of viral news piece can be used as an entry point for us to then bust myths related to pregnancies, inaccurate myths about pregnancies. And so we thought that this would be a good opportunity for us to hook young people in, and then educate them and provide information about pregnancy. And based on our experiences, these kinds of content really perform well because they're able to capture young people's attention. Another example that I'd like to show is how we use memes. So again, this is in Indonesian, but yeah, so we frequently use memes to use as entry points because we know that humor is a really big part of young people's attention. They like to be entertained as they learn. So yeah, this is what we utilize quite often. But again, this is really just a doorway to the actual informative content. So what I've been saying, everything that I've been saying, memes, humor, Netflix series, TV shows, everything, they're just, they're needed to grab young people's attention. But then of course, we will still need to deliver the actual quality information that young people need. So that was my first tip. And then the second thing that I've learned is that engaging young people emotionally is also really, really important to change their knowledge, skills, and attitudes. We've learned that too much reliance on informational content and intellectual engagement doesn't work as well, especially when we're trying to change attitudes and when we're trying to change and transform norms. It's usually not enough for us to just post a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of numbers. It usually doesn't really resonate with young people. And so we've learned that, okay, so young people really like being emotionally engaged through human stories. I'll also give you an example. So in Taboo, we have this series called, it's basically called Humans of Taboo. If you're familiar with Humans of New York, it's kind of it's a very similar concept. So for this series, we basically interview real young people about their sexual and reproductive health and rights experiences. And this is, this covers a very wide range of topics, from first-time sex to even breast cancer. And then we post these stories for our followers to see. Of course, everything is done with informed consent. And the series really provides a candid and honest snapshot of young people's experiences. And we do so because we want to show our followers that there's nothing wrong with talking about sex, even if it's a highly stigmatized topic in Indonesia. And here in my example, we had a transgender youth telling us a story about her struggles to access healthcare as a young trans person in Indonesia. And these stories also really, really perform well and have been very positively received, because I think these stories can build empathy and also emotional engagement with our followers and our audience. And then the last tip that I have for today is the importance to be flexible, innovative, and agile, especially since we're talking about digital content and social media. They're always changing, they're very dynamic, right? And so we have to be able to quickly adapt. What we do in Taboo is we experiment a lot with a lot of different kinds of content, new kinds of engaging with young people. For instance, I'll give you an example. So we also recently made a TikTok account, so the social media platform, TikTok, after we saw that there was an opportunity for us to engage young people through TikTok. And this is just us basically trying to ride the trend wave of TikTok and also provide comprehensive and evidence-based SRHR information on the platform. And we've been quite successful, garnering more than 1 million views organically. And so we're very happy about that and the result of our experiment. And so aside from best practices in SRHR content, today I would also like to talk about the importance of meaningful youth engagement and youth-centered design principles that I believe have to be in place for us to have a successful digital health intervention for young people. I think one thing that made our organization Taboo been able to stand out is the fact that we are 100% youth-led and youth-run. And because we are our own audience, we know what's best for us and we know what we need for ourselves. And so that was really it really helped us to be able to deliver content people need. So here are some meaningful youth engagement and youth-centered design principles that I feel are really, really crucial. And these are also based on the Young Experts Tech for Health work as well. So the first one is to ensure that young people have a sustained leading role throughout the process of program or intervention design. So we believe that meaningful youth engagement cannot just be a one-time thing. It can't just be one focus group discussion session where we get feedback from young people and then call it a day. That's not meaningful youth engagement. And we also need to take note that young people aren't just implementers, they're co-designers, they're co-evaluators, and their expertise, our expertise, is always valuable and crucial no matter what stage the project is in. And I also have to note that leading means that we can have a say and we can influence decision making. So we're not just passive actors who are supposed to be okay with whatever decision is handed to us. Next. So based on my experiences so far as a youth advocate, I see that a lot of pushback regarding young people leading and making decisions is that a lot of people see that young people aren't capable enough, or they aren't knowledgeable enough or experienced enough. But we believe that it's not really an issue of lack of capacity. We believe that it's really an issue of lack of opportunity. So what I mean is that it's not that young people aren't capable of leading or making good decisions, but it's just that we haven't had the opportunity to grow. And in fact, when young people are given the opportunity, training, and mentorship to develop their skills, we can grow our expertise in amazing ways. So if we're saying that there are no young people capable enough to lead, maybe it's because we haven't given them the opportunity to build their skills. And I believe that we should focus on that instead. And then next, this is also really important for us to ensure that all staff needs to be trained and are aware and are committed to meaningful youth engagement principles. And it's important that this is not just the responsibility of the youth engagement staff or whoever is assigned youth engagement, because we need to make sure that we create an enabling and safe environment for young people to be engaged, no matter who that they're interacting with in the organization. And then next, this is also a little bit related to what Christoph presented in his presentation, because youth engagement, in fact, also poses risks for young people, especially when it comes to digital engagement. And as Christoph said, there are a lot of dark sides to social media. There's risk of data security, exposure to online violence and harmful content, negative effects to well-being, and etc. So we believe that organizations have to have mechanisms to minimize these risks, safeguard young people, and provide solutions for when these risks actually happen. And this shouldn't be an afterthought, it should be designed from the very start. One example that I thought of, and that actually Christoph also mentioned, is that we should, for instance, provide digital literacy and well-being training and resources to youth advocates so that they're able to take care of themselves while they advocate for young people. This is the second to last one. I think it's also really important to note here that young people aren't just infinite resources that we can just tap into and utilize without consideration of compensation. In organizations, we compensate experts, we compensate consultants, etc., for their work and their time and their expertise. But when it comes to young people, we also devote our expertise and our time and our work. And so and aside from that, also, when we expect young people to be engaged or to work for free, we're limiting the opportunity to be engaged to only those who have free time and only those who can afford to work for free. So I think this is also something that should be taken into consideration. And then the last one, last but definitely not least, I think we should take note and be aware of the fact that when it comes to young people, recognize that there's a privilege and power dynamics aspect at play. Ageism and age-based discrimination is something that we young people face daily. And it becomes even more crucial when it involves young people, for instance, young people from the Global South, young people from Indigenous communities, young people with disabilities, LGBTIQI and other groups with histories and current realities of oppression, exploitation, and violence. Based on my experiences with international organizations, of course, it's usually an unconscious thing, but it can still seep into youth engagement without us realizing. And so I believe that we need to be aware of this from the start and actively fight against it to make sure that young people have safe spaces for them to engage in. And that was the last of my tip. And I'd like to close by saying that there should be no program or intervention, be it digital or not, that is for us, that is designed without us. And I also would like to encourage everyone here to follow our social media and our page to see our work. And perhaps we can also collaborate in the future. Thank you so much.
This was the classical unmute issue. Hi, Neira. Now I'm taking over from Karin and for leading through these questions and answer session. Christoph, may I as well ask you to come back to the room? Hi, good to have you here. We have had a really nice 2 presentations with different aspects, but I think there are certain things that are very much interrelated. Neira, there were some questions coming up from the floor, from our virtual floor. There were, I think, just one very short question: how about the target group? In which age are these people? These users of social media, where you are looking for what they need and how to address them by social media?
Target age group?
Yes.
The target age group for our social media intervention is older adolescents to young adults. So that would be 15 to 24 years old. And that is also our primary, so our audience is also, I think, 70% made up of in that age range. And so Instagram Insights and also other social media insights tools would be a good kind of a good metric to see the target, your audience's demographic characteristics, and we utilize that a lot.
Very good. And what about the impact? Can you measure the impact of your work somehow?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that we're still struggling with as well. I think in my experiences, it's still really hard to see, to connect, for instance, social media statistics and data on social media, for instance, like the number of likes, the number of comments, engagements, the number of how many people saved your posts, and actually link that to actual behavior change. You know, in an offline context, there are still a lot of challenges in that area, and I think we're still learning a lot. And to be honest, for my organization, because we're youth-led and youth-run, we don't currently have the resources to actually do research on it. It is something that we try to, that is something that is in our radar. And based on some of my readings and some of the lessons that I've learned, there are also other platforms and interventions that do like pre-test, post-test evaluation. And so they would measure like knowledge, skills, and attitudes related to sexual health in young people. And then, for instance, like give them the digital content that they've already designed, and then see afterwards whether if there's an increase or a change in the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. But for now, I think for like linking social media statistics to actual behavior change, I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer to that right now.
Yeah, but it's thank you very much. Just before taking Christoph up, there was another question coming up, certainly important. How are you how supportive is the Indonesian government?
The Indonesian government is generally supportive, because they're generally supportive of adolescent reproductive health education, but it is a different story when it comes to other more sensitive topics such as sexual orientation or like providing contraception to adolescents. Those are some of the topics that are still quite they're still very heavily stigmatized, but for the most part, they don't really like give us a hard time. So they don't really like actively try to limit our work. That's not something that they do. they're actually also open to collaborating with us, but not when it comes to other more sensitive topics. So if it's just about, like, for instance, puberty or menstruation, they're fine with collaborating with us, but not to more stigmatized topics.
Okay. Thank you. When I've listened to both of your great presentations, by the way, there are a lot of congratulations in the chat and for this exciting talk you have done, and both of you have done. So when I have both of this media, of these conversations heard, we're thinking a certain important point. You are doing quite different things. Christoph is addressing health workers, and you are addressing a broader young public in the field of sexual and reproductive health. But both of you, to explain it, to express it like Christoph has done, you try to meet the people where they are. So, or maybe Neira, you have said this, I'm not, yeah, I think you have said this. So, but I think you try to meet them where they are. But we have now a quite nice discussion on the chat around, are we using the right tools for addressing them? So what about WhatsApp, Facebook? You even mentioned Neira TikTok. For me as an older man, and even for my young daughters, they are about 20 years old, both feel TikTok. That's really something for the younger ones. So, but there are with those those medias, there are quite strong concerns. How do you handle this? Christoph, maybe first off to you, you use a tool which is widely used, but are you thinking of building up something specific for, or would we make this use to build up a specific messenger tool for health workers? And maybe afterwards, Neira as well on this question, is there another way to go there? Christoph.
Yes, I'm muted. No, you can
hear you.
I absolutely agree, and really, I'm torn about this because I'm aware of all the negative sides that are associated with the use of WhatsApp, Facebook, and so on. So there are so many negative aspects, but still, as you, Neira, said, meeting the people where they are is a very good approach. We can start by criticizing them where they are. My first answer would be we have to make them more critical of where they are instead of criticizing them where they are, by helping them to use these media in the most responsible way and say, well, never reveal the name, never reveal anything what points to the identity of a patient, just to give you one example. So this is the first thing. I absolutely agree also with what has been said in the chat, namely that we should use separate and protected systems. And I know there are many like mobile clinical information systems, simple ones also in use in many different settings in Africa and beyond. The thing here is that most of these systems as of today, they focus on structured data, like capturing information, perhaps clinical support and decision systems and so on. But to a much less extent, they incorporate aspects of communication. This is why so many nurses, midwives, medical doctors and so on, they're using WhatsApp and other communication tools as an add-on. I would really agree that we need to provide safe channels for communication, especially for patient and clinical work-related conversations. This is an absolute must. And in the meantime, until we have such thing broadly available, because in most contexts we do not have that, we need to say what they should and what they should not do on the media platforms that they're already using. So it's a very simple answer to a very difficult question.
Anyhow, thank you, Neira. Sensitization around sexual and reproductive health and rights, of course, but at the same time, sensitization as well around the media you are using and the young people are using.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm also I am actually in agreement with Christoph because I'm also very torn about this. It's a bit of a dilemma because on one hand we want to uphold like principles of human-centered and youth-centered design, and a lot of young people are actually reluctant to use another platform, a new platform, because a lot of them feel that they're already really comfortable with the ones that they're already using, and so they're like, okay, why can't we just learn on this platform that we're already using every day anyway? So I agree that it's a bit of a dilemma, and I also agree that with Christoph, I think that we need to educate and empower young people to be critical about the platforms that they're using, and that they should understand the boundaries of what's safe and what's not when it comes to these digital platforms. And that's why I think in my talk, I also said that we should have mechanisms to safeguard young people's digital rights and well-being. So when we are expecting young people to be engaged digitally, we also need to provide them with the resources that they need to protect themselves. But I also at the same time think that all of these different processes should happen in parallel with advocacy to the government and to tech-based companies, social media companies, for better policies and stronger policies to protect digital rights. So I think those two need to happen in parallel. We can't just okay, let's just keep using the platforms that we have now, but not at the same time try to explain and try to advocate for better digital rights to the government and technology companies.
Thank you. I think there is someone raising his hand in the floor and try to overcome technical barriers and try to give Juan Burgos the permission to talk. Then we make it a little bit more interactive, and we know that there are people outside. Juan, I think you can speak if you unmute. Yes.
Hello. Do you hear me there?
Yes, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Neira. Thank you, Christoph. You're both present very interesting topics, because social media have taken like a huge place, principally in context with using like now or recently starting to use smartphones and smart technology. So one question I had in addition to those I posed there was, how do you step forward yourself in a world of over information? There are a lot of things which are not true, which are not real, which are not, I mean, and you're providing a service which is very, is key. I mean, it's serious. This is something, which is not a joke, which is not only for fun. How do you stand up in this like huge universe of information now?
Neira, do you want to answer this?
Or sorry, if I got your question correctly, it's how do we stand out in this wealth of other information out there? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, principally in contrast with all this, like let's say fake information or not correct information that is also around, is also besides you actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, and I think I'd go back to one of my first points in my presentation is that we should lead with what matters for young people. One of the reasons why my platform was able to stand out was because we were one of the first ones in Indonesia to really present health information and sexual and reproductive health information in a way that can really engage and grab young people's attention and show that this is really an issue that you should be aware about and you should care about. So I think that is one thing that can make your platform or content stand out from the rest, is that you lead with what actually matters with your audience, and also I think also meaningfully engage your audience in the design of the content that you're going to post and the design of the platform that you're going to use. That also will make your platform stand out, because then your platform and its aspects and all of its programs will really be able to fulfill the needs of the target audience.
Thank you. We have further questions. Monica, you just can unmute yourself, and afterwards we take Kate Molesworth.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much, Christoph, also for your presentation. Just on Monday, I had chat with our health projects in Asia on digitalization, and the importance of WhatsApp actually as a life-saving instrument was emphasized, because it's used a little bit like the telemedicine. You don't need a big TV, you don't need a video thing, you know, like the classical telemedicine. And here I do see all the dangers in through the transportation through the internet, privacy, etc. But yet my question is a bit, would WhatsApp be like a bit the modern version of the old telemedicine, or the old telemedicine what I have in my head? And then yeah, how far does also these life elements actually count in the end, and support the use of social media?
Thank you, Monica from Swiss Red Cross. Christoph?
Well, my answer is clearly no. So I don't think that WhatsApp can and should be a telemedicine product, because it's not made for this, and it shouldn't be used for it. In some instances, when there is no other, and I've heard the same in the context in which we are working. So we have not propagating that. It was not part of our projects, but we're doing a lot of research how people and nurses, midwives are using these tools already. And they're really in situations when they want to have other people, when they want to consult someone else, they really ask them for support via WhatsApp. And then it's the only opportunity. And then it's really sometimes about saving lives. I would not want to make this the official strategy. It's just not, there are too many issues regarding privacy protection, what happens with the data and so on. And these big tech companies are all but trustworthy, and they have proven to do many things wrong. So the official answer is no, but if it's already being used there, and I think I would really say it's a dilemma. Just think of the WhatsApp bot that has been implemented by the South African government. And they could have said, well, we develop a separate app and we use the bot, and then all the South African people can download the app, install them, and then they can chat. But I'm quite sure, without knowing any of the details, that probably just 3% of the people who are now using the WhatsApp bot would have been using the separate app. So the reach of social media is something really convincing. So there's a trade-off, right? Isn't it? Regarding how many people you can reach, and what happens with the data that you're sharing. But if we are using WhatsApp bots for training, or other social media bots for training people, and then I think it's fair, because we're working not with real patient data, we're working with patient with patient cases which are fictitious, and for training purposes I don't see that many ethical dilemmas. But for real patients, I would say this should not be our country's strategy. But it happens thousands times, millions of times a day.
Thank you very much. Kate Molesworth, good to have you here from the Swiss.
Thank you, Martin. Good morning, everyone. I have to say I'm really enjoying this. And I'd like to thank both Christoph and Neira for the most recent presentations. Really very engaging, really informative. I have a question now for Neira. So Neira, I work in sexual and reproductive health and rights. And I was so interested to hear what you were saying, because in my experience, the world over, it's such a hot topic to deal with the right of youth to access correct information about sexuality. Because we have a lot of the older people worrying that this is going to influence young people to do things they wouldn't do otherwise. I don't need to repeat the argument, we all know it. But what I was wondering about is your experience with your platform. What kinds of broader social resistance have you encountered? because as I've said, I find even with top-down approaches, you know, even if we think of the UNESCO guidance to sexuality education, that isn't agreed to by many member states. So I'm wondering about, with this particularly contentious area that you're working in, which I think is very valuable, but what's your experience of resistance? And importantly, can you tell me about some of your approaches to mitigate that resistance?
Yes, please.
Thank you for your question. It's one that I do get a lot. For my platform in particular, I think the broader like acceptance and response to it has been actually quite positive, but that is coming from a lot of young people themselves, and so I think that's partly the reason why my platform has been received positively, is because it's mostly young people who know about it. But when it comes to like adults, my pattern, the pattern that I see is kind of similar to what I said before. So when it comes to just basic reproductive health, hygiene, for instance, or menstruation or puberty, no one has a problem with that, and everyone would you know, is happy to promote it. Everyone's happy to discuss it. But then when it comes to like more of the kind of controversial topics such as contraception access for young people, and like safe abortion, for instance, that becomes a more like that is a very polarizing topic, and a lot of people have very different opinions. And I think some of the resistance that we have had is mostly when we are talking and when we are speaking about those kinds of topics instead of the broader SRH topic in general. And the resistance has actually mostly been from other civil society groups instead of from the government. So when it comes to the government, they kind of avoid those kinds of topics, but they don't actively like resist us to talk about it. But then other civil society groups, some of them actually try to stop us from talking about sexuality and all those kinds of things. So it's actually pretty interesting. But I think it also speaks to the growing conservatism in Indonesia, religious conservatism. And some of the ways that we've been trying to resolve this, and this is not just my platform, but the broader SRHR movement in general in Indonesia, is to engage with other more progressive religious leaders. And that has been quite helpful in Indonesia, especially because Indonesians are very, we are very like religious, and we really uphold religious traditions. And so when we are able to engage with more progressive religious leaders, that helps open up people's minds a little bit and make them more accepting of young people's SRHR. But I think it's definitely it's a slow process, but it's always changing every day. It's dynamic.
Sometimes we have to start with these processes knowing it takes a long time. Last question coming out of the floor by chat from two persons, Muriel Weiermann of the World of Women's Hope International and Gabriela Wichser from Terre des Hommes, Switzerland. They have both a question towards the debate around leaving no one behind. And I want to shorten the two questions a little bit and ask you to really make two short statements, Christoph and Neira. So the question is how to deal with in our field to leave no one behind when we make use of digital technologies, how to include those that don't have access to digital tools. Are there hybrid technologies ready? How do we use with this analog world and the digital world for leaving no one behind? Maybe first Christoph, then Neira.